Today we'll be talking about our impact on English language learners. The first case that really impacted English language learners and their education was Meyer versus Nebraska in 1923. Meyer versus Nebraska was a United States Supreme Court case that held a 1919 Nebraska law restricting foreign language education violated the Due Process Clause of the 14th Amendment. This case protected the rights of parents to organize after-school and weekend heritage language classes for their children. This allowed parents to be more involved in their students' education. The next case is Brown versus the Board of Education on December 9, 1952. This was a landmark decision of the United States Supreme Court in which the court ruled that American state laws establishing racial segregation in public schools are unconstitutional, even if the segregated schools are otherwise equal in quality. This case made it clear that English language learners cannot be separated from other students throughout their education and still learn English effectively. This case made it the responsibility of the states to provide their students with equal education opportunities, which began the journey for bilingual education programs to become what they are today. Next, we have the Bilingual Education Act of 1968, which is also known as Title IX of Elementary and Secondary Education Amendments of 1967. This was the first United States federal legislation that recognized the needs of limited English-speaking ability students. The act states that the federal government would be responsible for providing financial assistance for innovative bilingual programs. Without the federal funding for these programs, many of them would not exist today. Next, we have Lau versus Nichols, which was on January 21st, 1974. This was a United States Supreme Court case in which the court unanimously decided that the lack of supplemental language instruction in public school for students with limited English proficiency violated the Civil Rights Act of 1964. This was one of the most important court case decisions regarding the education of English language learners, because it decided that throwing students into English-speaking classes and expecting them to either sink or swim was not an appropriate way of teaching. As Justice William Douglas put it, there is no equality of treatment merely by providing students with the same facilities, textbooks, teachers, and curriculum. For students who do not understand English are effectively foreclosed from any meaningful education. Next is the Equal Education Opportunities Act of 1974. This act was passed on August 21st of that year. This was a federal law of the United States that prohibits discrimination against faculty, staff, and students, including racial segregation of students, and requires school districts to take action to overcome barriers to students' equal participation. This not only took away problematic factors for these students, but it also created a better school and workplace environment for them. Next is Law Remedies of 1975, and this is based off of the case Lau versus Nichols. This was a set of policy guidelines for the education of English language learners based on the ruling of Lau versus Nichols suit. It mandated school districts to comply with the civil rights requirement of Title IX. Without these remedies, many English language learners would be left behind in the classroom without the proper tools or opportunities to learn. The next case was Castaneda versus Pickard, which occurred in 1981. In the 1981 United States Court of Appeals for the Fifth Circuit ruled in favor of the Castanedas, and as a result, the court decision established a three-part assessment for determining how bilingual education programs would be held responsible for meeting the requirements of the Equal Educational Opportunities Act of 1974. The criteria that were created based on this case are below. They include the bilingual education program must be based on sound educational theory. Second, the program must be implemented effectively with resources for personnel, instructional materials, and space. And third, after a trial period, the program must be proven effective in overcoming language barriers and handicaps. In 2001, the federal law No Child Left Behind was created. This is a law that provides money for extra educational assistance for poor children in return for improvements in their academic progress. No Child Left Behind is the most recent version of the 1965 Elementary and Secondary Education Act. Without No Child Left Behind, many children would be left without a proper education, and the money that's given to them makes them want to work harder for a better education. In November 2016, Proposition 58 was passed. Proposition 58 is a California ballot proposition that passed on November 8th of the 2016 ballot. Proposition 58 repealed bilingual education restrictions enacted by Proposition 227 in 1998. Proposition 227 required limited English proficient students who were in separate classes to be put in regular classes, ended bilingual programs, and required students to be taught in an English-only environment. Proposition 227 did not help English language learners at all. By repealing Proposition 227, English language learners were given the opportunities to learn in an environment which best suits their needs. The Look Act of November 22, 2017 allows school districts the flexibility to choose bilingual education or other language acquisition programs. Giving school districts the ability to choose these programs allows them the chance to choose programs which best fit the needs of their specific students. All of this information was gathered from the Right textbook and colorincolorado.org. Thank you.